When I think about what men want, it's usually a shorter answer than when I think about what women want. What Men Want is a loose remake of What Women Want, which was made in 2000 starring Mel Gibson and all that fun stuff. I was interested in seeing this because I actually did like What Women Want, but it's actually kind of surprising that they made this in the first place. Though naturally speaking, if you're going to make a movie where men can hear women's thoughts, naturally, you got to make a movie where women hear men's thoughts, even though it's technically not as interesting in my opinion. But it is what it is. When you see a movie called What Men Want, you would think it would be a little bit more authentic with answering that question, what men want. And the things that men are thinking in this movie aren't really that realistic. It's going off of the idea that it's a comedy, and so it just wants to be funny. But that's not what men actually think. If it is, then gosh, I feel weird being a man. First up is the people category. That's talking about the acting, characters, casting, importance, and chemistry. When we look at the acting, subpar. Subpar. Not that great. Not that great, guys. Out of 4 possible stars, I gave it 1 because it's not even average. Taraji P. Henson, I don't know how you actually say her name, but she stood out like a sore thumb in a bad way. She was just overacting the whole time, and just it took me out of the entire experience. And nobody in the movie was actually great. Everybody else was average. But at the end of the day, because of her performance, it gets knocked down to 1. Sorry. Character-wise, they're all just fine and dandy. Nothing that's really that memorable or anything like that. I think for the most part, you watch it more for who's playing the characters than who the characters actually are. So everything here is pretty average, nothing memorable, nothing terrible either. So 2 out of 4. Casting's kind of like acting. It's not that great. When I heard they were making What Men Want, the first thing that I thought of was, man, it would be really cool if they focused on the character of Helen Hunt's character of in What Women Want, or Mel Gibson's character's daughter, for instance. If they did that, it would have been more like a sequel than a remake altogether, and it would mean more for the original fans of the film than what this movie did. I don't think the casting was right. I think it's really random and weird. So 1 out of 4. Importance-wise, when I think about importance, I think of throughout the entire cast of characters, does everybody play to their own strengths? Do they all have a role to play? Are they all doing something that adds to the plot? No, I think for the most part, the only people that actually have importance are the main characters. That's it. Everybody else blends in together. Everybody else is secondary, and it's annoying. 2 out of 4. Pretty average. Standard. Now, this is partially a rom-com, so as far as chemistry is concerned, you want it to be high. You want it to be 3 or 4 at minimum. Here we have 2 out of 4, which is an average chemistry that you'd see in any other movie that has nothing to do with being a romance or being a movie about friendship. But this is, so it's kind of weird. It's actually a bad score for chemistry for this type of movie. For other movies, it's average. But for this specifically, I can say, yeah, it had some bad chemistry in terms of what it was going for. It's average, and it should be a lot more than that. 2 out of 4. Add all that up, you get 8 out of 20 possible stars for the people category, which is only 40%. The writing category goes over dialogue, how balanced the film is, the story depth, how original it is, and if it's interesting. Dialogue gets full points, and the reason why is because when you're looking at the dialogue of a film, you want something that's either memorable or important to the plot. And in this case, it's important to the plot, obviously. She's hearing the thoughts of men, so that's a lot of dialogue going on. So even if you don't like it, the writers did focus a lot on the dialogue itself. That deserves credit, so full points here. Balance of the film, even though it's subtle, it is very simple. Her character is after a certain goal. she's a workaholic and she's trying to do something in her job, very much like Mel Gibson's character in the original film. I don't think it's balanced as much with the romance angle, but her job goal, it's clear. 2 out of 2. Everything else gets 1 out of 2 possible stars here. Do I consider this a deep or meaningful story? Technically speaking, it probably should get full points because you're talking about somebody who's learning something about themselves through the thoughts of others, just like Mel Gibson's character in the first. However, it's not focused on as much. It wants to be more of a comedy than the original was. So when that happens, it kind of sidesteps away from a meaningful message. And I mean, that's fine. But 1 out of 2 basically means the bones of a deeper, meaningful story is there, but it's not focused on. So, originality, I gave it 1 out of 2 because obviously it's mostly copying off of the first one. It's a remake. A lot of the plot points in this movie is copied directly from the original. The only thing that's really original is obviously the gender swapping. So 1 out of 2 there. Is it interesting? I think for the most part, the concept interested me enough to watch it. And after I started it, it kind of lost me along the way. So 1 out of 2. So in the end, the writing category gets 70%, 7 out of 10 stars. For the most part, the BTS category, behind the scenes, got a score that is pretty average for a movie like this, a rom-com, a comedy in general. They usually get the same score, and that's 6 out of 10. And of course, What Men Want got the same score for the same reasons. Obviously, it's not going to focus so much on visuals, cinematography, editing, or music and sound. The visuals were fine. Nothing stood out. It was what you would typically expect. It never really tried to be anything more. The cinematography, the camera work, anything like that, it's fine. Again, it's nothing that's going to make you go, wow, that shot was filmed really well. No, nothing like that. Same with editing. Anyone could do it. I could do it at home. It doesn't really matter. Advertising, sure, it was as advertised, so that gets full points. So there's no false advertising. That's fine. Music and sound, whatever. It had the right amount of music to make the film feel like it's supposed to feel. So in the end, 60%, 6 out of 10. I would say for the most part that What Men Want got a pretty good score for the narrative arc. The narrative arc, of course, goes through the introduction, inciting incident, obstacles, climax, and falling action or resolution. The only thing that didn't score full points here was the climax. I thought that it didn't really feel explosive. It didn't feel like a culmination of everything before. It just kind of felt like everything else. It was there. There was a climax. It just didn't feel like much. But everything else is fine. The introduction got you acquainted with everybody. Got you acquainted with where they are, when they are, and the tone of the movie in general. The inciting incident is obviously when Taraji's character hits her head and can hear people's thoughts. And obviously that's a crossing of the threshold moment as well, because she can't return back to the point where she couldn't hear their thoughts. The obstacles comes down to her work goal of trying to land an athlete for her talent agency. Climax, again, kind of anticlimactic, but it does calm down and return to a new sense of norm for the resolution. So everything is good there. 90%, 9 out of 10. The entertainment category goes through how rewatchable a movie is, how much of a good time you have while watching, your impulse to buy it or own it, your impulse to talk about it or recommend it, and if it's engaging or if it's riveting enough that makes you feel like you can't pause it because something important is going to happen or exciting is going to happen. So how entertaining is it? Not much. The only thing that got points here was fun experience and if it's engaging or riveting. Those both get half points. Everything else gets no points. Fun experience, yes, it has its moments, but it also has its moments where it's boring, so that's why that got half points. Engaging and riveting, the way I find out if this gets points is if something's happening in the movie that makes you feel like you can't pause it, that makes you feel like you have to watch it. until there's a good point to pause. It has those moments, but it has a lot of moments that don't really mean anything. So that gets half points. Everything else, I don't really care to rewatch it again. I don't care to own it. I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to put it on a wish list for other people to buy it for me. There's nothing discussion worthy. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to recommend it. It's just not that kind of movie. If you want to rent it, fine. So be it. But I don't know. I'm not in the target audience. So it wasn't that entertaining for me. 20%, 2 out of 10. Talking about the specialty category, you're talking about the different things that you expect to see when going in to see the movie for the first time. First things first, the first thing you're going to probably be keeping in the back of your head is, this is a remake of What Women Want. So does it feel like that? Does it have that same amount of magic, of fun, of heart? No. It has it here and there. It does kind of feel like the same thing. Obviously, it has the same concept. But it could have been a whole lot more. It could have been a whole lot better. And for that reason, I give this half points, 5 out of 10 possible stars. Title specific. Does it actually accurately depict what men want? No, I see men as really simple creatures. Yeah, I mean, they can be complex and everything, but for the most part, it would have been a whole lot easier to make this movie if they were accurate about what men actually want. And they're not. They just want to be funny, they want to be comedic, and the fact of the nature is the best way that they could have done this is to make more of a contrast between the main character and the men she's hearing thoughts of. Because if you think back to What Women Want, Mel Gibson was a man's man. He was a womanizing, he was a pig, he was the worst kind of dude. And that's in contrast with all the women he came into contact with when he started hearing their thoughts. You really saw the contrast there. But Taraji's character was kind of manly herself. She wasn't very girly, so you didn't really see that contrast because she herself was kind of acting like a guy, stereotypically speaking. So it's not exactly what you want to see from the movie. Half points again, 5 out of 10. So this is a comedy. Is it funny? Well, I didn't find it funny at all, but I understand that comedy, it's a subjective genre, and what I find funny might not be funny to you, and same vice versa. No, I didn't laugh with this movie. I didn't really find it funny, but that's not to say it's not to others, and I do appreciate and acknowledge where others might actually find this funny, because I kind of understand where others might. But that's just me. So this gets half points as well, 5 out of 10. Finally, is it halfway decent? Did they make the movie that they intended to make from the get-go? Yeah, I think for the most part they did. I mean, I might not agree with all the decisions they made with the movie, but they made the movie that they wanted to make. They hit the target audience that they wanted to get to. Everything works out here, so full points, 10 out of 10 possible stars. The specialty category added up is 25 out of 40 possible stars, which is 62.5% if you want to look at percentages. But if we add up everything, we get 57 out of 100 possible stars, 57%. Not the best, I know. But, now, guys, tell me what you thought of What Men Want in the comments down below. And remember, for YouTube, you can always subscribe to me. Hit that like button, hit the bell, and I'll see you in my next review. Peace out.